Ladies and gentlemen, today I stand before you to speak about a subject of profound importance, a subject that lies at the very heart of every human being's journey. It is something that has been with us since the beginning of time, something that influences every choice we make, every relationship we form, and every path we take. And yet, despite its omnipresence, it remains largely unspoken, often denied, and too frequently ignored. The greatest enemy of man, the one force that stands in the way of our greatness, is not an external adversary. It is something far more insidious. It is fear. Fear is the silent destroyer of dreams. It is the invisible barrier that keeps us locked in mediocrity, shackled to lives of unfulfilled potential. It masquerades as a protector, convincing us that it's keeping us safe from harm, but in reality, it is the greatest thief of our future. It steals our confidence, our creativity, our ability to take risks and to trust in the possibility of something greater than what we currently see. From the moment we are born, we are introduced to fear. It's in the shadows of the unknown and the uncertainty of new experiences, and in the voices of those who, out of their own insecurities, tell us that we are not enough. Fear is taught. It is conditioned. It is learned. And over time, it begins to take root in our minds, creating false limitations, convincing us that we cannot achieve, cannot be, cannot have. But I say to you today, fear has no power unless we allow it to. It is nothing more than a thought that when embraced can paralyze our potential. The fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of judgment, the fear of inadequacy. These are not truths. They are merely stories we tell ourselves. Stories that hold us captive, preventing us from stepping into the fullness of who we are meant to be. The world around us constantly tells us that we are not enough. It bombards us with messages of lack and limitation. It whispers in our ears that we must conform to certain standards, that we must be like everyone else to be accepted, to be worthy. But let me tell you this, the power of greatness is found in the ability to rise above fear, to reject the lies that keep us in bondage, and to embrace the truth that we were made for something extraordinary. The greatest enemy of man is not some external force seeking to destroy us. It is not the people who criticize us or the circumstances that seem to conspire against us. No, the greatest enemy of man is the fear that lives within us, the fear that keeps us from stepping into the fullness of our potential. Think about it. Every success story you've ever heard, every person who has ever done something remarkable has had to face this enemy. And the difference between those who achieve greatness and those who remain stagnant is not that they don't feel fear, but that they do not let fear control them. They confront it. They look it in the eye and say, "You have no authority over me. I will not be ruled by your lies. I will rise above you." What holds us back is not the fear itself, but our response to it. We must learn to transform our fear into fuel for our purpose. We must become warriors, not in the physical sense, but warriors in the battle of the mind. Every time fear arises, we must recognize it for what it truly is: a lie attempting to keep us from moving forward. And when we face fear, we must refuse to let it dictate our actions. Instead, we must take courageous steps even in the midst of our fear, because it is only through action that we can overcome it. What would happen if we no longer allowed fear to control us? What if we stepped out in faith, no matter how uncertain the path ahead may seem? What if we decided to pursue our dreams, our calling, with a relentless determination, refusing to let anything or anyone stop us? The truth is, the moment we conquer fear, we unlock the door to greatness. We discover that the greatest enemy of man was never external. It was never the world or the people around us. The greatest enemy of man was the fear within us. And when we overcome it, we become unstoppable. So, I challenge you today, examine your own life. Where is fear holding you back? What dreams have you put on hold because you were afraid? What relationships have you neglected because you were scared of being vulnerable? What opportunities have you missed because you doubted your worth? Fear is not your master. You are the master. And today you can choose to take authority over the fear that has been ruling your life. You can choose to live boldly, to step into your destiny with confidence, knowing that you are made for greatness. The world needs you to rise above the fear that holds you captive, to become the person you were created to be, and to leave a legacy that will inspire generations to come. The greatest enemy of man is not out there, it is within. And today you have the power to defeat it. Fear is the greatest enemy of man, holding us back from our true potential. It is a silent force that works its way into the very core of our being, influencing our decisions, limiting our actions, and distorting our view of the world. The tragedy of fear is that it often operates unnoticed, as a shadow quietly shaping the course of our lives without us even realizing the extent of its control. We tend to think of fear as something external, a danger or threat that we can avoid or confront. But in reality, fear is often self-inflicted, a product of our own minds and beliefs. From an early age, we are conditioned to fear failure, rejection, judgment, and the unknown. These fears are instilled in us by society, by our families, and by our own experiences. We are taught to avoid risk, to play it safe, to follow established paths, because deviation from these norms can result in failure or disapproval. Fear of failure in particular is paralyzing. It tells us that any misstep could be catastrophic, that we are not enough, and that we are destined for mediocrity. This fear often keeps us from even trying, locking us in a cycle of inaction, doubt, and insecurity. We become afraid of our own potential, believing that taking bold steps would expose us to harm or embarrassment. As we grow older, this fear becomes more entrenched, manifesting itself in different ways. It may take the form of self-doubt, insecurity, or the constant need for validation. Fear creates a false narrative in our minds, a story that tells us we are incapable of achieving our dreams, that we are unworthy of success, or that the risks are simply too great to bear. It becomes a barrier between us and the life we were meant to live, a constant reminder that we are not enough, and that we cannot rise above our limitation. What's most dangerous about fear is its ability to keep us stuck in the comfort of our own small world. We choose the safety of the familiar over the possibility of something greater, all because fear has convinced us that the unknown is too dangerous to face. And so we stay where we are, never reaching for the greatness we were meant to achieve. Fear is learned and conditioned, shaping our beliefs and limiting our action. It is not something we are born with, but rather something that develops over time through the experiences and messages we encounter throughout our lives. From the moment we are born, we begin to absorb the world around us, and with it, we start to internalize the fears of those who raise us, of the society we live in, and of the events that unfold in our lives. What begins as an innocent form of self-protection or caution gradually grows into a powerful force that dictates our choices and holds us back from reaching our full potential. In childhood, fear often comes from external sources. We are told not to take certain risks, not to explore unfamiliar areas, and not to trust certain people or situations. Over time, these warnings become ingrained in our minds as rules, conditioning us to be afraid of things that might push us outside of our comfort zone. The fear of rejection, the fear of failure, the fear of the unknown all become part of the narrative we carry with us into adulthood. And it's not just the things we are explicitly told to fear, but the experiences we witness and live through that further deepen this conditioning. When we see others fail or face consequences, when we experience disappointment or rejection ourselves, the fear becomes more than just a concept. It becomes a lived reality, an emotional response that we carry into every new situation. As we mature, this conditioning takes a more subtle form. It begins to influence our beliefs about who we are and what we are capable of. We start to see the world through a lens of limitation, believing that we are not equipped to handle challenges or that we must follow a certain path to be accepted and successful. These conditioned beliefs create a sense of inadequacy, making us hesitant to step outside the boundaries that have been set for us. The world begins to seem like a place full of danger and potential failure rather than a place full of opportunity and possibility. This learned fear has the power to shape the very way we approach life. It causes us to question our worth, to doubt our abilities, and to shrink back from challenges. Instead of seeing obstacles as opportunities for growth, we begin to view them as threats that we are not equipped to overcome. The more we allow this fear to dictate our actions, the more we limit ourselves, keeping us confined to a life of smallness and unrealized potential. Overcoming fear requires courage and the willingness to confront it head on. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the strength to act in spite of it. Every person who has ever achieved anything meaningful or remarkable in life has had to face their fears. Whether it's the fear of failure, rejection, or uncertainty, every great achievement has been birthed in the presence of fear. The key difference between those who succeed and those who remain stuck is not that some people are fearless, but that they choose to move forward despite the fear that holds them back. Fear paralyzes. It keeps us from taking action, from making decisions, and from pursuing our dreams. When fear is allowed to control us, it dominates our thoughts, our behaviors, and our outlook on life. It convinces us that the risks are too great, the cost too high, and the possibility of failure too painful to bear. It is only when we decide to confront our fear directly that we can start to free ourselves from its grip. This confrontation does not mean eliminating fear entirely. It means not letting it control us, not letting it define the direction of our lives. Courage is the antidote to fear. Courage allows us to take the first step when we are uncertain of the outcome. It enables us to speak up even when our voice shakes. It empowers us to try even when failure seems imminent. Courage is the spark that ignites action even when fear is shouting loudly in our ears. It is the decision to move forward even when the path ahead is unclear. Courage does not come from a lack of fear, but from a decision to act despite fear. Confronting fear also requires a deep level of self-awareness. We must be able to recognize when fear is influencing our decisions and preventing us from moving forward. Fear often disguises itself as logic, making us believe that we are simply being rational or cautious, but in reality, fear is often a distorted perception of risk, a false story we tell ourselves about what might happen if we take a chance. It is only when we challenge these beliefs and move past the false narratives that fear creates that we can begin to break free from its hold. Courage, then, is not simply about doing something bold and brave. It is about the willingness to push through the discomfort and uncertainty that fear creates. It's about being uncomfortable, yet resolute in the decision to keep moving forward, knowing that the reward of overcoming fear far outweighs the temporary discomfort of facing it head on. Success is not defined by the absence of fear, but by our response to it. Too often we equate success with the idea that one must be fearless to achieve great things. We believe that only those who are unafraid, confident, and bold are capable of accomplishing their goals. But the truth is, fear is a natural part of the human experience. It is a response to the unknown, a reaction to uncertainty and risk. Every person who has ever reached any level of success has had to face fear. It is how they responded to it that made all the difference. Fear is not a barrier that keeps us from success. It is a signpost that points to areas where growth and transformation can occur. When we encounter fear, it reveals something important, that we are stepping into new territory. that we are on the verge of something significant and that there is potential for us to grow. Instead of seeing fear as a signal to turn back or stop, we must learn to see it as an opportunity to step forward. When we respond to fear by moving forward, we turn what could be a roadblock into a stepping stone towards success. What separates those who succeed from those who don't is not their lack of fear, but their ability to manage it. Successful people don't let fear dictate their actions or limit their potential. Instead, they acknowledge it, confront it, and move beyond it. They understand that fear is a part of the process and that it will always be present whenever they are pushing boundaries or striving for something more. But rather than letting fear paralyze them, they use it as motivation, fueling their drive to take bold, decisive steps toward their goals. Success is built on resilience, and resilience is born through facing fear. Every setback, every challenge, every obstacle that comes our way offers a chance to grow stronger, more determined, and more resourceful. Fear might make us hesitate, but it is our response to it, our ability to continue despite it, that defines our journey towards success. Those who allow fear to hold them back never know the full extent of their potential, while those who move through it discover just how much they are capable of achieving. The moment we conquer fear, we unlock the door to greatness and purpose. Fear is the ultimate thief of potential, and as long as it remains in control, we remain confined to a life of limitation and unrealized possibilities. When we allow fear to govern our actions, we choose a life of safety and comfort over one of challenge and fulfillment. But when we face that fear, when we break free from its grip, we create space for something extraordinary to take place. Conquering fear is not about eliminating it entirely, but about refusing to allow it to dictate our choices and hold us back. It means recognizing that fear, while natural, does not have the power to define us unless we give it permission to do so. Once we realize that fear is simply an emotional reaction to the unknown or uncertain, we can begin to separate ourselves from it and view it for what it truly is. A signal that we are stepping into new territory. This shift in perspective allows us to break free from the limiting beliefs that fear creates and begin to act with purpose and confidence. As we conquer fear, we step into the fullness of who we are meant to be. We begin to trust our abilities, to embrace challenges, and to take risks that move us closer to our goals. We no longer allow fear to convince us that we are not capable, not worthy, or not enough. Instead, we embrace the idea that every step we take, even in the face of fear, brings us closer to realizing our true potential. It is through confronting fear and moving beyond it that we discover the depth of our resilience, strength, and determination. In the process of overcoming fear, we uncover a greater sense of purpose and clarity. When fear is no longer in control, we can see the possibilities before us more clearly, and we begin to make decisions that align with our deepest aspirations. We stop letting the opinions of others, the expectations of society, or the fears we've internalized define our path. We start to move forward with conviction, knowing that each step is leading us closer to our true calling. Fear no longer holds the power to keep us small or stuck. Instead, we are free to pursue the life we were destined to live. In conclusion, fear remains the most formidable enemy that stands between us and the realization of our full potential. It is an invisible force, often operating behind the scenes, that dictates many of the choices we make, from the smallest decisions to the most significant life-altering ones. Fear keeps us confined in our comfort zones, preventing us from embracing the unknown and stepping into the greatness that lies just beyond our current boundaries. But the truth is, fear does not have the power to control us unless we allow it to. Fear is simply a feeling, a reaction to perceived threats. And it is up to us to determine whether we will allow it to govern our lives or whether we will rise above it. Throughout this journey of life, we are conditioned by the people around us, by our experiences, and by society itself to view fear as something that should be avoided at all costs. We are taught to play it safe, to follow the rules, and to steer clear of risks that might lead to failure or disappointment. But this approach often leads to a life of stagnation where we are stuck in a cycle of unfulfilled potential, unable to pursue the dreams and aspirations that are meant to shape our lives. Fear may seem like a protective mechanism, but it is in reality the very thing that keeps us from growing, evolving, and achieving our true purpose. The key to overcoming fear lies in recognizing it for what it is, a natural part of the human experience that is not meant to be feared, but faced. Fear arises whenever we venture into unfamiliar territory, take risks, or make decisions that challenge the status quo. But instead of allowing it to paralyze us, we must learn to use fear as a catalyst for growth. Every time we confront fear head on, we move one step closer to the person we are meant to be. Fear shows us where we are growing, where we are expanding, and where we are truly capable of achieving greatness. Courage then is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act in the presence of fear. It is the ability to keep moving forward despite the doubts, uncertainties, and anxieties that accompany every great endeavor. Courage is not about being fearless. It is about choosing to move through fear, to acknowledge it, and to refuse to let it control us. When we adopt this mindset, fear no longer holds the power to limit our actions or define our potential. Instead, it becomes a stepping stone on the path to our goals, a signal that we are on the right track and that we are stretching beyond our current limitations. True success is not measured by the absence of fear, but by how we respond to it. Those who succeed are not the ones who never feel fear. They are the ones who refuse to let fear stop them from pursuing their dreams. They understand that fear is simply a part of the journey, a reminder that they are stepping into the unknown, and that is where growth and achievement lie. By responding to fear with determination, perseverance, and courage, we unlock the door to greatness. Ultimately, the greatest enemy of man is not the world or the people around us, but the fear that resides within us. It is fear that keeps us from taking risks, from being our authentic selves, and from achieving our true potential. But the moment we decide to confront and overcome that fear, we unlock the full power that lies within us. And in doing so, we step into the life we were always meant to live, one of purpose, fulfillment, and boundless possibility.